Hello, my fellow seekers. Welcome to Into the Work, therapy for empaths, seekers, and the intuitively driven, where you have front row seats to therapy sessions and expert interviews that will help you define the important work that you're here to do. So I guess you actually have something better than front row seats. You practically have a seat on my couch. That's right, you will have unrestricted access to actual sessions with real people, exploring real life issues. You will continue to be inspired by powerful conversations with experts and healers that might just share exactly what it is that you need to hear to get unstuck. I am Michelle Pauverman. I am a recovering people pleaser and former anxiety-driven empath, turned now mostly grounded psychotherapist and intuitive coach. I have been helping people for almost 20 years manage their limiting beliefs and anxiety to finally stop the self-sabotage and step into their gifts. I created this podcast, Into the Work, to give you a place to learn more about yourself and give you actionable strategies to finally move those roadblocks holding you back so you can go for what you want. Above all else, my hope is that this podcast is a catalyst for your awakening. If you're listening, you've already taken a step towards getting off of autopilot, and our next steps together will be taken episode by episode, waking you up to the possibilities, the new ways of thinking and being, so that you can stretch into that next level of your story. The spark has already been lit, and my friend, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's light a fire. Hi, welcome back to the show. Today, we're talking about how you can stop waiting to be chosen. Stop waiting for the thing to happen and start leading with intuition and your inner authority. Have you ever felt like you are doing all the things, right? You're helping, you're supporting, you're showing up, but deep down, you're still waiting to be picked, waiting to be validated, or told that you're doing it right. In today's episode, we're talking about something really powerful. This shift moving from the helper to the healer, or the employee to the soul-led leader, whatever you want to call it. It's moving from a place of where you're waiting for validation and you're overgiving and you're overextending yourself and you are trying to meet some type of definition of what you think you're supposed to be doing, and actually stepping into and taking ownership of what you want, right? It's not about ego. It's about ownership. I'll walk you through what this shift really looks like, how to know when you're still stuck in the role trap, which we'll talk about, and how to begin leading your life and your work from a place of deep intuition, alignment, and of course, your inner authority. So let's start with something I call the role trap. We really get trapped in our roles sometimes. And this is when you identify more with the role you've learned to play than the truth of who you are. And that gets really tricky for a lot of us as we're growing up because we learn, you're a really good girl when you do this, right? You learn common roles that many of us empaths take on, which is usually one, the helper, always available, always needed, and rarely resourced, right? The good girl who avoids conflict, overperforms, and seeks approval. And then the supporter, happy to be behind the scenes, doesn't want to take up space. And then there's kind of like the employee that follows the structure, doesn't trust their vision, and waits for permission, or waits for the instruction at least, right? What these roles have in common is they are externally oriented, right? So your value is measured by how much others need you, how well you follow the rules, how little you ruffle feathers. We know we've been there in these environments where you are loved because you keep it easy, right? The role trap keeps you in a cycle, though, of overgiving and overthinking and underclaiming your power and your authority. Before we go any further, I want to be very clear. I find deep, humongous value in all of the roles that we have available to us in life. We need everybody on board, and everybody has different kinds of strengths. But what I'm talking about today is how whatever position you're in, that you're finding your own internal source, a stable source of personal power. And that throughout life, whether that be work, relationships, I mean, really every aspect of your life, you can step into leadership, you can step into personal power and authority. And that's how you make stuff happen. But what I'm asking for you is, how are you keeping yourself trapped? So why might you find yourself staying in what we'll call the waiting room? Right? You're waiting to be invited. And many empaths and soulful women are truly waiting to be invited. They're waiting for someone to give you a platform, waiting to feel certified, quote unquote, enough, experienced enough, right? That imposter syndrome stuff comes up sometimes for some of us. Waiting for some sort of external validation before trusting your intuition. And I'd really love for you to hear this podcast and think, I really want to tap into myself more. I really want to tap into my intuition more. And I'd like to have more authority in my life, to decide what's right, to project that forward into the world and to make decisions from that instead of waiting to be asked before initiating what your soul is already guiding you to do. For instance, honestly, one of the greatest blocks I hear about all the time is I heard this and I loved it, and it's so true. The idea of procrastinating, procrastiplanning, whatever, right? Fill in the blank. We have a way of spinning that keeps us in the waiting room, right? We have all these great ideas, we have all these things, but we don't have the authority within us to get the thing done, to stand in our power and say, this is what's right. This is what I want to do. I'm going to project this forward. I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to take my turn. And a lot of us are sort of a little bit more comfortable quietly waiting in the back and kind of procrastinating on all that. The truth is, most of us have never been taught to self-initiate. It's not something they teach us in school. This is what it looks like to self-initiate. Here's a good example of when you should do that. No, we didn't learn this, especially if you grew up with conditioning that made you believe that your power was a bit dangerous or disruptive or selfish. This is where the identity of the helper feels safe. You're needed, you're appreciated, but you're never fully seen. That's how most of us feel. I know you know what I mean if that's you. You know that you're needed, you know you're appreciated, but there's something in the flavor of it that you never feel fully seen. And that is a byproduct of not stepping in your power, projecting yourself outward with authority and standing in it and owning it and making decisions from that place. And it does come from a place also of the overgiving and overdoing and the deep need to be needed, because that drive is in place. People can sort of walk all over us in a way. And so what I really want to do is help you look at redefining leadership without ego. So let's redefine what it even means, especially for soulful, sensitive women. The old model of leadership is hierarchical, right? It is ego-driven, it is performance-based, it's often very masculine, right? It's very masculine structure. Assert, control, dominate. That is sometimes, the exact wording of, how we define success. You asserted yourself, you controlled, and you dominated. And now I'm asking you to look at the role of leadership very differently. How in your life could leadership look if it was embodied presence, truly being powerfully present, soul-aligned and intuitive? What if you were a leader and your leadership style was to be very aligned to yourself, to your soul, to your purpose, as well as your intuition? My guess is you wouldn't be a reactive hothead, right? You would be somebody that really absorbed and created space and could sit with that and deliver, what is powerfully whether it's an opinion or a project or something that you're working on, that you're able to deliver that from a really powerful place. Ownership of your energy, not just your actions, is another piece that I want to mention. Another new way of looking at leadership is ownership of your energy. If you're stepping into being an embodied, present, soul-aligned, intuitive leader, then ownership of your energy, responsibility for your energy, not just your actions, but your energy, how you show up, how people feel you when you're talking to them, right? What kind of energy exchange are you involved in as a leader? And leadership as an energetic integrity and influence is powerful. It's powerful. This isn't about being above others. It's just not. It's not going to be that for us. For most of us, that's not of any interest. It's about becoming deeply rooted in yourself so that you can lead with clarity, compassion, and power. And this can be you, even if you're just a one-woman show, yoga instructor or coach, or if you're just a one-woman show, this is how I want to step into my power. This is how I want to lead my life. And maybe it's simply just how I want to raise my family, the energy I want to have in my home, how I want to show up with authority in such a way that shifts the energy of my entire house. So I really want to introduce this idea of how you might perceive yourself now and what this could look like for you as you move into it. That your old identity, perhaps, let's say you see yourself as helper, maybe now you see yourself as healer, as a guided, grounded, not overgiving, not overextending, not depleted, right? You are grounded and guided. And maybe healer is not the right word for you, but you move from being just the helper, which is based on being needed, right? And then therefore become the wise one, or something that fits you in terms of how you want to own your soulful leadership. If you were currently an employee, you could look at yourself as, I would like to be a vision-driven, self-trusting leader in my own role and the position that I hold right now. I want to feel that I am tapping in, I'm holding space, I'm being thoughtful, and I'm using my intuition, as well as I'm trusting myself. I don't shrink and get small. I actually, as my role as your guide, I am doing A, B, C, and D to really be able to help impact the world in such a way of which I exist in, right? So whether that's business, home, personal life, whatever that looks like, that you can hold the space instead of just being a supporter. And you don't stop helping people. You don't stop helping people, but you help from alignment, not depletion. You help from a place where you are fed, you are nourished, you feel like this is my purpose. This is what I'm here to do. I'm not overextending and doing all those other things, but I'm here coming from a place of alignment. And you lead by example, not by just managing other people, but also by people seeing who you are and how you hold yourself. And that actually is so powerful because that has a ripple effect. You're giving people permission to do the same. And that is really powerful. So what does it take to make this kind of a shift? Because it isn't, it's not always easy, obviously. It asks us to kind of grieve some old identities that are really rooted in being liked or needed, and choose discomfort over constant approval. It is so much more comfortable for us to receive that constant approval than it is for us to sit in the unknown of what everybody else thinks, right? Doing things and putting myself out there when I don't know what the outcome will be. And I think it really does ask for you, like if you really want to stand in your authority and create this new role of leadership in your life, I think it does ask for you to learn to be seen in your full power. Like actually tolerate that. Can you tolerate being seen in your full power? Because honestly, I know that I've come across some research in this. I cannot quote it, but I do believe it to be true. And that is that we are less afraid of failure than we actually are of our own power and being successful. When we feel big and powerful, we many times retreat. It just gets really uncomfortable for lots of different reasons for all different people. So I think part of the process is really learning and extending it, putting yourself out there to be seen in your full power, owning it, holding it, putting that mindset out there, but also using that same attitude, words, everything that you say is coming from the place of being the guide, not just a supporter, right? Being the leader. So setting boundaries that might disappoint other people, setting boundaries is obviously going to be something that you're going to need to do. Setting boundaries is how you protect your soulful goals, how you protect your purpose, how you protect your well-being, your health, right? All of it, mental health, all of it. And so for you, you might want to take a look at what kind of boundaries do I need right now? And I'm going to tell you, if you're stepping into the role of your personal power, if you're stepping into the role of, leadership and authority and having your own authority in your life, I'm going to tell you that the outcome of those boundaries is that it should never leave people guessing. So when you say what works for you and what doesn't work for you, it should be so clear that nobody is wondering what you mean by that. Nobody is left second guessing on what does work for her, what doesn't work for her. Does she mean this? Does she mean that? No, you're speaking very clearly. So part of the boundary is going to be with yourself. Can you hold the boundary with yourself, right? To change how you show up, how you speak, hold the boundary with yourself to not overgive, not overextend, and speak with clarity on what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And this is the big shift. When we set boundaries, it is about being known, about being seen, about stepping into our power. It's not about hurting or other people or making other people uncomfortable or being mean. Those are just old programming that is totally getting in your way, right? Because the people that you probably admire the most, probably in a very lovely, graceful way, you just set really clear boundaries. Like, oh, that doesn't work for me. I can't do that, but this is what we can do. And so really learning to step into that, you're going to need to anchor your identity into your soul, because when you're setting those boundaries and you're not leaving anybody guessing, you're kind of anchoring yourself into this new identity. And remember, this is a soul expression identity. This isn't ego. This is what's true for you. And what's true for you is always right for everyone. So anchoring yourself in the identity of your soul, of who you're meant to be, who you are here to be, who you want to be, all of that is important information that tells you how to behave, what kind of ways, how to talk. And when you can say, this is for the good of all because it's good for me and everything is always in balance, I can really grasp and hold on to this, that if I'm showing up and I'm showing you who I am, not who I think you want me to be, not who I think everybody thinks I should be, but I'm actually just going to show you who I am. And I'm just going to tell you what I feel, what I think, what works for me, what doesn't. That is sort of really deeply kind of going into trusting that even when it's unpopular, that it's most important for me to be truthful. And again, what did you learn about being truthful? Were your parents truthful when you were growing up? Did they tell a lot of little white lies so nobody would be hurt or be upset, right? Did they say, oh, we had a doctor's appointment when you really, just decided to stay home? Really know, what did you learn about truth-telling? And can you step into truth-telling again? Maybe you haven't for a long time because your truth has never been enough. Your truth, when you learned when your parents were telling those little white lies and trying to make everybody else comfortable, what you learned was that what was real and what was true for maybe, let's say, your mom or dad. Let's say your mom, would tell her friends that she can't make it because, so-and-so has this thing, and it was a lie. And so what your mom taught you when she did that was that she's not enough. Her feelings and truth is not enough. It's not good enough. And so then we take that on and absorb that, and then we learn that lesson, right? Unfortunately, we start to create that same belief system that our truth can't be enough if their truth isn't enough, because they're the word, right? They're a parent. So your truth can't possibly be enough. And so then therefore we feel the nudge to do the same. And so you might want to look out for that, because that's going to get in the way of you being able to really step into your power, do the boundary setting and really step into your power and do this even when it's unpopular. But a skill that I like to also put out there is imagine that when you walk into a room, your energy goes first. So I want you to imagine it's not your resume, it's not how much you people please and what everybody thinks about you because you did everything with so and so, 500 times, and everybody owes you in the room because you've done so much for everybody. Actually, being a good leader is putting your energy first. And that what I mean by that is the vibration that you want to hold, the way that everybody's going to receive that vibration. Does it feel like, wow, this person is just really vibrating high? Like they're so positive, but they're just so direct and they're so clean and there's just something really awesome. You leave their presence and you want to be better, right? You leave their presence and you want to be better. Have you met somebody like that? Because it's so cool when you do. And you walk away and you're like, wow, they didn't even say that much to me, but there's something about their energy that just makes me want to be better. And that, my friend, is such a beautiful gift. And so that in this example, you also see how this trickles out. When you walk into the room and your energy goes first, and that is what you are gifting, not, again, how long your resume is, not all the people pleasing, not everybody that owes you things because you've done so much. It is just simply you and your raw truth, but also this energy that you bring that not only puts people at ease to some degree, right? That makes them comfortable, but also raises up their vibration so that they can feel like, wow, they're inspiring me. That's what a good leader does, right? It's inspiration, inspiring others, impacting others in that way. In a very simple, sometimes very covert way. And so how do we lead with inner authority and intuition? And how do we kind of bring that voice into it while we're talking about all this? I switch between, having your authority or also having your personal power. But it is the voice within you that says, I know what's true for me, even if no one else sees it. And I can stand in that truth and let it lead me and others. That's just personal power. I don't need any external factors to define this source. Nothing defines this source because it is truth. It is just me, and I stand in it. And so I don't waver if somebody has a different opinion, or I don't waver if somebody, is seemingly not happy with what I'm saying because it's my truth. And I don't need everybody to be in the same truth as me. I don't need everybody to like me right? And while I'm doing that, by the way, just want to say this, we're also responsible for being kind. We're also responsible for being clear because we also know clear is kind, right? And that's when we were talking about earlier is when you walk away, you want everybody to know exactly what it is that you want and what you are putting out there into the world. So you know that you're leading from your authority when you initiate instead of wait. So all of you who right now feel stuck, it's time to initiate. You've been waiting. You're waiting for something to happen. You're waiting for something to make it easier on you. You're waiting for something to take over. Now, I want to say that you'll also see in my podcast a lot of discussions about the intuitive process and even intuitive leadership, that we are, we go through different phases, and sometimes we do have to wait. Sometimes we are waiting for our marching orders, right? We're waiting for the inspiration. We're waiting to know when it's right. And that's when we're in a beautiful, intuitive flow, and we can sit in that so comfortably and just say, no, it's not time yet. That's okay. I will know when it is time, and I can't wait. That's not what I'm talking about. I know if you're listening to this and you feel like you're stuck or you've been stuck in the past, you know what I'm talking about. It is not that, right? There's fear and there's anxiety deep down beneath that, right? It's self-sabotage. And when you don't initiate and you just wait, you get further and further from your authority and you feel more powerless, and it feels really yucky. When you are leading from your inner authority, you begin to trust your decisions, even when they're hard, even when there's a lot of unknown. You're just like, I don't know. I know this is the decision to make. It's the best one I got. That's the only one I got. And so I'm going with it. And, sometimes I also throw out there, like, not everybody's a fan of this. Some people love it. Some people are like, that's not cool. I'm a big fan of B-rated B work. Like I grew up an A+ girl. If I didn't get an A+, I fell apart. I did crazy things when I was younger to make sure that I could keep up and I had the grades and all the perfectionistic stuff. So now in my life, I'm a fan of grade B. And I'm not saying don't go out there and be amazing and do your best, because I certainly jump in and do like my absolute best when I can. And that feels amazing. I love when I put a lot of effort into things. That's why I can spend a ton of time. Like I did my 12-week, or I'm in the middle of my 12-week boundary mastery. And of course, like I'm digging up the juice and the jewels. I'm trying to like hit them with like the most powerful things I can, because it means so much to me. I'm not saying it doesn't mean like when you do B work, it's like not powerful. You're still putting your best self forward. However, is there a typo? Is there something going on? However, you're procrastinating, whatever that measure is that keeps you from going from point A to point B of like hitting publish, or, taking the action step, making it happen. Whatever is happening between those 2 points is what I'm talking about. It's time to initiate. You have to start trusting yourself enough. You've come this far. It wouldn't be on your plate. You wouldn't be staring at this decision, this action, if you weren't ready for it. You wouldn't have it in front of you the way that you do. And it's time to initiate. So tune in before you reach out is another aspect I wanted to mention about being in your personal power, in your inner authority, because you know the difference when you're working with people or you're around other people and they come at you or they're very reactive and they show up and they kind of shoot from the hip. Now, I do that. I definitely do that sometimes, but I really try to do the work of tuning in, which meaning like slow down, create some space, be thoughtful, go inward for some answers before you go ahead and lash out for sure, but before you go ahead and become reactive in a situation or even, disrupt something that's happening. And, it's time to tune in first before you make a decision like that. I mean, really, you're really aligning all of your actions with your values, and not for approval, but with your values. Like, am I standing in my integrity? Yes. Are these values of mine important to me? Yes. Does this thing that you're looking at moving forward in, your actions you're taking with your internal leadership, is that something that aligns with your values? Yes, then go. There's no reason to stop. Unless it's a more intuitive flow that you're like, I literally know, Michelle, from a deep knowing place that this isn't meant for right this moment, but I can't wait for it to come. But I know I'm supposed to just sit. That's a very different intuitive space to be in versus fear and anxiety. And you know the difference. So how can we strengthen this? I want to just kind of mention this before we wrap up here. I want to talk to you a little bit about checking in. So we talked about that. I think daily alignment check-ins, like where am I leaking energy? And I want you to just do this like maybe 2 times. Maybe just check in with yourself in the morning, check in with yourself in the afternoon. How am I doing? Where am I leaking some energy right now? Go ahead and take a really deep breath. And I really want you to kind of get into body awareness. Our bodies tell us a lot about ourselves. Your body is really telling you a lot. I want you to take a deep breath and just center. Get down into your feet. Feel your feet. Wiggle your toes. Get into your body. And do an alignment check. Where am I leaking energy? Where am I sort of being asked to say no today? Where is my big yes? Like, what are these things? What feels right and what doesn't feel right? Because sometimes we're so in the moment, and if you're so conditioned to do what everybody else wants you to do, you kind of get lost. You don't know you're right and you're not right, because in the moment you're just feeling the anxiousness of like performing, right? You want to perform for people. And I'm asking you to stop performing and to actually get quiet and get into yourself, your body, and create before you consume, meaning trust your ideas before seeking outside input. A lot of us really want that validation, and it can be like taking a drug away from a drug addict when I tell you to stop. And if you consider this important work for you, then I'd say take a week off and just trust your ideas. Practice what that feels like. Even if you're freaking out, it's better for you to move through that freak out, get to the other side of it, and see that you're safe and you're okay. And that worked out well for you to start really building this authority. You have to be able to trust yourself. And trust is a big one for so many of us. So many of us, this is like our core wound is trust. And, it shows up in so many sneaky ways. And certainly you standing in your power and making things happen and really stepping into your authority and being the leader in your life, initiating, requires trust. So I want you to think about asking yourself these questions. I want you to ask yourself, where in my life am I still waiting to be chosen? Am I waiting for somebody else to take the reins and make it happen for me? Or something like that. And I want you to also ask yourself, what role have I outgrown, but still play it out of habit, right? Is there some role that you're in that you have outgrown? And I mean this, like it can be parenting, your kids are getting older, you want to change how you're showing up and redefine the relationship. Maybe it's your core relationship with your partner. Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's in your business. Whatever it is for you, I want you to look at what role have I outgrown, but I'm still playing it out of habit. And then what would it look like to initiate from alignment this week? If I were to say I am coming from a place of being in my core self, knowing my truth, and taking that truth and turning it into something that leaves me, that I create, that I project into action, what would that be? And also just pay attention, you can journal about it, but just pay attention to what does inner authority feel like in my body. You might have a relationship with it that has become such a scary thing for you to have big opinions, because somebody along the line told you you're too opinionated, or you're too much, or, you should be quieter. Children should be seen and not heard, right? Maybe you had that kind of energy around you at some point, and it squashed you. And you created this kind of silent person, this quieter version of yourself, so you could be loved. But I'm asking you, if we were to kind of start the inquisition, the observation, just observing, what does inner authority feel like in my body? And notice, does it feel scary when you step into it? Say, I'm going to own this. I'm taking full responsibility. And I'm going to move on it and initiate. I want you to look at how that feels in your body. Because wherever you're at right now, if you really keep doing this work and you keep taking action and you move forward and you practice what it is for you to be in your authority, where you can practice it, how it shows up, I promise you, how it feels in your body is going to change. So it's a very good observation for you to look at it right now and be like, oh my God, I have so much anxiety. Or, hey, this feels like this pit in my stomach. Or it feels really big. I'm starting to feel shaky. Whatever it feels like, I really want you to get to know it so that you can actually see that it changes. Because there will be a time where you're like, wow, I actually feel very confident about that. I really like this a lot. And so that's going to be a really great tell. And also, just as an energy practice, calling back your power from anyone or anything you've given it to. I love this exercise. I do it all the time, where you can close your eyes and just literally imagine anybody who you have unconsciously attached to, that you've made them the person that's supposed to make you happy, or you've attached to, all these other people, either at work or relationships or family, that you've created these attachments that are basically not serving anybody, right? We have love and we have relationships. I'm not talking about disconnecting from people. I'm talking about calling back your power from anyone or anything you have given it to. And when you make somebody else external from you in charge of your happiness, your joy, whether you're okay or not, that is you being powerless. And in order to step into your authority and personal power, you've got to call it back. So I literally will tell people to just imagine as you breathe in, you're releasing everybody from that job and you're calling that energy back and you're breathing it into the body. It's a really wonderful thing. But go ahead, take a moment this week and share your truth. Start the project. Say the thing. Just take a minuscule action step. That's my challenge to you. And step into your authority, claim it, own it, breathe in that soul power that you have. This shift into your personal power as like a soulful leader in your life, right? Being the main character of your life is sacred work. It's not flashy. It's not always praised, but it is powerful. And the world doesn't need more performers. It needs more people who are rooted in truth and aligned with purpose. You don't need permission for this, by the way. You don't need to be chosen. You only need to choose yourself. And so with that, I hope this was inspiring and got you thinking about how you can really step into your power. As always, I appreciate you listening. And of course, I always appreciate reviews. If you have a moment and you can just click on the review and just write a quick word and let me know what you think of this episode or just the podcast itself. I would love to hear from you. It just feeds my soul. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. And I will be back next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Into the Work Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. Don't forget to grab your free gift, your Shadow Work Transformation Bundle at michellepoverman.com. I've included everything you need to get started to break through the patterns of self-sabotage and finally start to heal the parts of yourself that are getting in the way of truly reaching your potential. From a powerful meditation designed to help you meet and embrace your shadow self, to the guide that's full of curated prompts and important questions to support you on this journey. This really can be the work for you to unmask the root cause of all the issues you've been experiencing, honestly, and start to feel free to believe in yourself and go for what you want. The link for this free bundle is in the show notes. And if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you could take a moment and rate, click and follow, and leave a review. Of course, you can always follow me on socials at Michelle Poverman. And keep in mind, as you embark on your journey from spark to brilliance, remember, the universe is always conspiring in favor of your awakening. Everything that's happening is in support of you lighting your own fire within. So until we meet again, may your path be well lit and your heart be guided. Shine bright, seekers, until next time.